Hello, welcome again to Mustard Sports, and this is Talk is Cheap, where we get stuck into the burning issues surrounding Norwich City Football Club. Joining me for the second time this week are Norwich City fans Dave Freezer and wearing a very fetching yellow and green shirt, it has to be said, Matt Colley. Okay, we're going to ditch the buzzer game for this week. We're going to get stuck into a proper debate and the joys or not of being a Premier League football fan. Obviously, we'll be focusing primarily on Norwich City, but it seems over these opening weeks, Norwich City fans have leapt from joy and ecstasy to despair and back again. And Matt, I don't know if it's worse this season than it's ever been before, or whether it's just standard fare and we forget each year how good and bad it can be. How do you see it?
Well, for starters, I totally understand the frustration of the fans, because we're not just looking at 6 games this season, but also other than the last 2 games of last season, a long barren run of continual underachievement, poor performances, and I can totally understand how fans are or were getting a little bit fed up with the fare that was being dished up. But Chris Hughton's given a sizable transfer budget. He's brought in some good quality attacking players, and on Sunday we saw the first signs that can really click and reap dividends. And I think it would be far too knee-jerk to want rid of Chris Hughton this early in the season. Yeah, I mean, if we're down in the relegation zone November, December time, then that pressure will naturally ramp up, and so it should. But I think we all need to be a little bit mindful of the fact that players do take time to gel, and that the 4-5-1 formation can work. And I just think we all need to kind of take stock and think, well, at least we're not Sunderland.
I love that. I mean, Dave, you're 3 up front from the other video. Keep your heads. I mean, I suppose there's a similar sentiment, isn't it? You say Sunderland, a few games in, they sacked Di Canio, and it would be fair to say that Norwich fans weren't happy literally 2 games ago before the Watford League Cup win.
But as Pilkington has said after the game, it would be crazy to sack Hugh, and it's too early. And like Matt said, we've got to be realistic. It does take time to gel a team. I'm not sure whether perhaps it was the 3 Lambert years of just pure success and being totally spoiled with late victories and everything going right for us, that we maybe bred a type of fan that sort of lost sense of reality a little bit. Because I do think people are overly critical and moan a lot very quickly. If it's 10, 12 games into the season and we're back to where we were at the end of the Villa game, and we were playing bad football, we weren't passing the ball, and everyone in the stands could almost see the obvious problems that didn't seem to be getting fixed by the manager, then maybe that's the time when the pressure can build. But hopefully we don't have to get anywhere near that. And we've got some games now which are going to be tough, but equally, as we saw last season, the pressure sort of offers. We beat United 1-0 and we beat Arsenal 1-0 at home last season, and in the end they became massive wins for us. So if we beat Chelsea on Saturday, then all of a sudden the worries are going to look quite distant.
I blame Football Manager and these people coming in and just winning games of the season left, right and centre. Interesting point you mentioned about Chris Hughton almost figuring out the problems, because I think they've still defensively, even when they've been poor on the pitch, they haven't conceded, they haven't been hammered, and they've kept the score down, which didn't happen last year. And now the midfield is clicking. Is it fair to say that through all the stick Chris Hughton's had, and some of it justified, he's sort of figuring out the problems as Norwich go along and find their way?
I'd like to think so, but the proof's in the pudding, isn't it? And without wanting to get stuck in cliches, you are only as good as your last result in football, and we've got 2 away wins on the bounce, and vastly improved performances. Well, actually, to be fair, for an hour against Watford until fair came on, it was pretty dire.
Yeah.
But you are only as good as your last result. It's ridiculous to think that Hughton could be under any real pressure to lose his job now. But if you look at it, 3 of our next 4 games are against top 6 clubs. And if we were to lose at home to Cardiff and get nothing for the next 4 games, then that pressure would be right back on him again. But I seem to recall us being in a similar position 12 months ago and beating Man United, beating Arsenal. I think we have to look in the round, and if we are very, very close to the bottom 3 or in it after the next 4 games, then we might need to think about whether it is time to look for a new manager. But ultimately it's the nature of the performances rather than the results, and I think that will work in Chris Hughton's favour in the next few weeks, because no one's expecting us to go out there and beat Arsenal, beat Man City. It gives him a little bit of latitude to say, right, you've got nothing to lose here. Go out, express yourselves, and show the fans that you can play good football. And even if we don't get the results, it's an opportunity for him to continue with the style of performance we saw on Sunday, without the fans jumping down his throat if we don't beat Arsenal or beat Manchester City.
Absolutely.
What I find strange about the criticism of Hughton is that ever since he came in, since day one, he's such a nice guy, so professional, everybody likes him in football. And I guess it must have got to the point where we were playing such frustrating football and not passing the ball to a fairly basic level that is turned on somebody who's so popular, which I don't think we would have sort of expected to happen when he took over. So I hope that he can win people back, because I think everybody wants him to be successful because he fits in this club, doesn't he?
I'd absolutely agree with that. Just a quick mention, just from each of you, who's worse off? Norwich in the position they are in the table now. They're sort of ensconced. They're level on points with Manchester United and Swansea, for goodness' sake. So who is looking ropey for the rest of the year, Dave?
Well, Palace. I think
Great on Palace.
I think they're the one team we can be pretty certain we will finish above. Touch wood. But I mean, why Holloway signed Shamak, I just don't know. I mean, if ever a player was even more bereft of confidence than Fernando Torres, then it was him. And I just think he was the worst player they could have signed when they know they're going to be in a relegation battle. And I think Holloway's showing a few chinks in his armour as well. He seems kind of vulnerable in some of his interviews, so I think they're in real trouble.
It's very different to when Blackpool were.
Before they signed Shamak, it was Aaron Wilbraham on his own up front.
Hey, Wilbrahimovic! Don't diss the Wilbrahimovic. And Fulham, Matt, I suppose I mentioned for Fulham, because Martin Jol looks like a beaten man. I suppose similar situation to any club that's struggling. He's under massive pressure.
Well, I mean, he may look like a beaten man, but it only takes a couple of good results. And Yol's obviously, he's certainly not someone you could accuse of being too nice. He's good for a soundbite, but he's certainly not someone you'd mess with. And you look at the quality they've got. I know Parker's just picked up an injury, but like Parker, Tarabt, Berbatov, Brian Ruiz, really good player. They've got enough quality in that side to pull themselves out of it. So I think Hull will probably get sucked back down into it as the season progresses. But other than Palace, there is no one who I would be prepared to nail my colours to the mast and say, yeah, they're gone.
We shall see. I suppose Martin Jol just needs to sign a couple of players who'll actually run around, maybe rather than walk. Gents, thank you so much for your time. Thank you all for watching. We'll be back with the Pundits Predict later in the week, looking ahead to Chelsea's visit to Carrow Road to see Jose Mourinho walk out down the road here, but possibly literally, judging by his press conferences. We'll be back then, and in the meantime, take care, and we will see you soon. Goodbye.